Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Eva Salinas, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with artists Santiago Tavera and Laura Acosta. Their installation, The Novels of Elsewhere, is part of Latin America, Embedding Bodies and Localities, an exhibition co-presented by Sur Gallery in Toronto and Mayworks Festival of Working People in the Arts. I am joining Santiago and Laura from Hamilton, Ontario. And before we get started, I want to acknowledge that I'm on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. This is land covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement and is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We may also have people listening from all around the world, so I would like to respectfully acknowledge all Indigenous peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to elders both past and present. Santiago and Laura are joining us from their studio today in Montreal. Hola y bienvenido to you both.
Hola,
Hola,
gracias.
gracias.
Let's start with hearing a bit more about in this installation. Can you describe it in your own words, perhaps, and tell us how you came to work together and how this piece took shape?
Yeah, thank you so much, Eva, for wanting to talk about our work. So Santiago and I have independent practices that are quite different. We'll give a little bit of a brief explanation of them so we can give context to our collaboration. In my work, I use textiles and performance as a way to observe how different bodies either accept or reject the structures that they dwell within, and how different bodies have the potential to create different spaces. And for Santiago's work?
Yeah, so in my own practice, I construct immersive or interactive multimedia installation spaces. So the idea is always to create these mixed reality experiences or these augmented simulations of different migrant or queer narratives. So for this installation, which is actually called Like Despecho, it's the third episode of a series of immersive and interactive projects that we've been developing under the title The Novels of Elsewhere. So with this one, we combine both of our practices in constructing a multimedia, digital space, along with performative elements, textile sculptures. There's also live neon camera lights, live camera as well, VR 360 performance that we're presenting. So we're really combining a lot of our separate explorations and putting it together in this collaboration. So with this piece, we're interested in creating a space that evokes a sense of displacement, which is something that we both share as immigrants that came to Canada at a young age. So we're very interested in exploring this identity of an immigrant, which for us, it was and it continues to be this ongoing process that it's in constant translation, in constant flux between, the two different cultures, the two realities, two different spaces that are part of our lives and that we belong to.
So maybe just walk us through it briefly, for those who may not be able to see it in person, but I'm thinking of the different layers or experiences that, if you were walking into the space, or what the different experiences that you're hoping will emerge as one interacts with it.
Well, as Santiago is saying, the main premise of our exploration, this is also, as we said, part of a series of other installations. The main premise of it is to create a space or to create spaces where people are questioning their own relationship to the surrounding environment. And with this particular piece, we wanted to really create a space where people question their own position as physical bodies that belong to physical realms, or as virtual identities that are part of a digital sort of state. So our intention is to create a sort of live ecosystem where the audience has to question how they interact with the things that surround them. So as Santiago was saying, in this specific work, we are combining VR elements with immersive projections, with live performance, with live broadcasting. So the body is seen as digital renditions of it as well as physical renditions of it. So the same elements are presented both virtually and physically more than once, so that the audience themselves falls into a sort of sense of displacement, which is what we want to evoke with this work.
So when someone comes into the gallery, they see at Sur Gallery, and they see our installation, they see a screen that's broadcasting a live footage of an installation space where we have video projections, where when the viewers go in, they also can interact with the textiles pieces and the VR headset. So when they put the VR headset on, they are taken into this other space of an immersive projection environment with also an element of performance. So we use this sense of displacement a bit more as a tool or as a method to create awareness of the impact of digital technologies and digital media in how we represent ourselves, how we communicate with others, how we understand spaces, and essentially how we identify our ourselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the goal with this piece is to blur the lines between an observer, a performer, and a participant. The viewers themselves are asking if they're part of the work, they're witnessing something that is also present with them. So the idea is to sort of create this moment of ambiguity, so that the audience member can become part of that live network or ecosystem that we're trying to describe.
And I want to get to the concept of identity in a moment, but that's so interesting because obviously when somebody's bringing their own identity and experience, they're going to have a different interaction then with the piece, depending on what they're bringing to it, right? And the lens that they see it from.
Absolutely.
You obviously had the basis, working together, knowing each other, for this maybe this piece or this series. Was there a discussion of kind of the values that are at the basis of your own work, the values that you're bringing into work, what you wanted to come through, whether it was empathy or, that kind of deconstructing identities or experiences, the interaction or intersection between technology and migration? I mean, there's so much there, but did you have that conversation of what you wanted to come out and what your own values were that you were bringing into it?
I think for us, part of our practice and our collaboration, that becomes the key of the productions that we do, the sense of creating a community around the projects and coming together into critical thinking about current issues of the environment or migration and so on. So I think for us, we're always trying to involve the community. As we're doing these large scale productions, we're doing workshops with performers, we involve a diverse group of people when we do, technical or video shoots, studio assistants, and so on. So it's always important to construct spaces that are safe, that are inclusive, and that welcome a lot of different perspectives. And I think for us, in creating these installation spaces, it's also opening up this other space that it's open for that. So I think for us as queer POC artists, we value creating the spaces of representation that ultimately is going to uplift the community and speak about current issues for sure.
And the wider exhibition, Latin America embedding bodies and embodied and localities. You've talked a lot about. You've mentioned, just the place that the body has and the interaction that has with this particular piece, but your own identities or identity, how have you brought them into the work, and what's your relationship to that as artists and maybe with this piece in particular?
I think from our experience as being Colombian Canadian immigrants, that the experience of diaspora and the experience of building your identity from these two cultures, also trying to appeal to a sense of what is being Canadian, what is being Colombian at a distance, I think what it opened for us was, aside from the migrant experience, was more the perspective of identity in general as an ongoing process that is self-reflexive, that it's open to change, and that is not a finite, heterogeneous, sort of categorized process. You know, we understand that identity is built from social and cultural engagement, but especially in the era that we're in right now, we also really acknowledge how digital spaces give way for identity to become more multiplied. So in essence, our relationship to identity and what we want to put forward with this work is the idea of identity as being multiple and in constant movement and transformation, which we think it's a place of empowerment, especially speaking as queer POC artists, speaking for, not for, but like having shared experiences with many communities who are, you know, underrepresented or oppressed. The thing that we see with this idea of multiplicity is a place of empowerment where you can choose who you are at any given time, and you're not defined by the intersections that that are going through you at all times.
And there's so much more to discuss, especially on how technology plays a role in that. And I find it so interesting to almost flip it so that, you know, there is an empowerment there as opposed to it you know, enacting on us. But just you know, in an effort to keep this interview on a time constraint, but it's so interesting to hear that theme emerge. I want to ask just on what this year has meant for you both. I mean, it's been challenging. You know, the changes in this pandemic or lockdown era have been many for many of us. And what has that meant for your own lives and as artists, as workers, as those with a connection to two or more sometimes places?
Well, first of all, it became very apparent for us that it was a moment to continue to create. Of course, it was very rough on all of us, you know, psychologically, emotionally, what was happening. But and we're lucky that we share a studio, you know. So it was a moment for us to really continue creating. And in that sense, as Santiago was saying, because we always work with fellow art workers from our communities, it was a time for us to share any experience, any opportunity that we had with our fellow art workers, with our colleagues. So any opportunity that came our way, any grant that we received this year, we really made sure to employ our friends, bring people forward, uplift their practices, and allow everybody to continue creating. Like, it became a year of really focusing on uplifting each other.
Yeah, I think uplifting, working, and reflecting back on and giving back to the community. I think, as you were saying, we often, I mean, in the past, we were traveling to Colombia to do different projects, exhibitions, but not being able to do that this past year really made us focus, like look back inside and really focus on the now and our present surrounding. So in that, I think, you know, as you were saying, our lives moved to a virtual realm where we now socialize, we work through this medium. And I think that's, in a way, expanding a sense of a body and how we have to engage with others and how we create communities now through the virtual realm. So within that, I think it was important to also remain critical about current social, political, or environmental crisis. So reflecting and being aware of that and the impact that we have on, you know, on the environment and each other as well, for sure.
Yeah, given the crises that happened this year, we found it more important than ever to make a connection with the relationship between us and others in space, outside of like an academic discussion, an academic conversation. With what's happening with COVID right now, it is so obvious and clear that the fact that we're disregarding the idea that we affect the spaces around us, it's turning into the mess that we're in. Like, we really need to acknowledge that our presence, our behaviors, our patterns affect our environment.
Yeah, how interesting. In a time when we need to distance, there's more evidence of connection than ever, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, just briefly, any hints at what's coming up next for you both?
Well, I think actually based on what we were just talking about that of this past year, we recently opened an exhibition, which is another of the episodes that we've been creating. It's like episode 4, which is called Camouflage Screams. It opened this past Saturday at a gallery here in Montreal called Optica, and it's gonna be up until June 12th. Fingers crossed, no, it won't close or be trapped. But that's a project that we have right now. It really talks about that relationship of the body with the natural environment. And we're hoping to continue these episodes, these installation projects. We're doing 5, we're missing 1, so we have 1 more to work on. And we see this body of work to really to come together into a publication eventually. So that's a bit of what we're working towards.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Santiago and Laura, for this great chat.
Thank you.
And to all those listening and watching as well, you can find the installation in Sur Gallery physically in Toronto or virtually at surgalleryvirtual.ca. And for more information about the Mayworks Festival of Working People in the Arts, visit mayworks.ca. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Ciao. Gracias.
Ciao.
Ciao.